This was Locker Room Talk.
Time for Locker Room Talk. You know, Mike, this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, why is that? You got some good ones?
I got so many stories. And honestly, I can turn the most bland fact information into a story. Just give me the mic and let me run.
Yeah, I got a bunch, man. And honestly, you know, they've never left the confines of the actual locker room. And I can't lie. I'm a little nervous, but you know.
Are you? Yeah. Well, look, you're in a safe place with me, right? Circle of trust.
Circle of trust for sure.
Oh, and I don't know how that works.
This is BDE, so fuck it. Let's get into it, man.
Let's do it. Okay. So for this first one, right, I think we got to kind of warm up a little bit, use it as an opportunity to introduce ourselves a little bit more to the crowd, to the audience, right?
Agreed.
And so I don't want to scare away people too much. So I think today we talk about how we ended up at Duke in the first place, right?
Yeah. That's great. That's great.
As far as I know, these are somewhat similar stories. So
I'm with it. You go first.
Start? I'll start. Okay, here I go. So unlike a lot of college football players, I was told from a very early age, college football is not in your future. My dad was very, very practical, very rational, logical to a fault, to the extent that he was a pessimist, totally, right? But I think part of it was he didn't want me to get my hopes up, but he wanted me to keep first things first, right? So everything was about grades. So when I was growing up, he told me the only people that get football scholarships are really great players on really great teams that get really lucky and get found by a team. And I think maybe that's the way things worked when he was in school or something. So I believe that. So I never really had an eye on making it, although quietly I was always planning to make it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to say it out loud because I don't want to get ridiculed, especially by my dad. But he used to tell me, no, you're too small, you're too slow. And it's funny thinking about that now because obviously I'm not. But in some ways that was a good thing. So, you know, coming up through school, it was always I got kicked off of my third grade. In third grade, I was playing. It was my first year of tackle football. My dad took me off the team because I got 3 A's and 3 B's. And I fought. I scratched tooth and nail. I was screaming, crying. He said, "I'll give you one chance to get it up. Go talk to your teachers, and if they'll bring your grades up or give you some makeup work or whatever, then I'll let you back on." He was just playing with me the whole time, you know.
Yeah.
Because he wanted me to think always that grades first. Which, by the way, that's the truth. That's the way it should be.
Absolutely.
So anyway, as I go through high school, there's no recruiting. You know, there was nobody at my school in the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years that was even offered a D1 scholarship. So that wasn't really something that I was expecting.
Where you coming out of? Tell the folks.
I'm from Florida, Seminole, Florida. There's 2 Seminole Floridas, not to be confused with the one in, I think it's in like Orlando. This one's near St. Petersburg.
Gotcha. And
we weren't good. My senior year was the first year we made it to the playoffs in 27 years. So there wasn't a lot of tradition coming out of there or anything like that.
That makes sense.
So anyway, when I started getting recruited by Duke, and then that was, you know, Duke was actually one of the first ones, certainly Division I, but it was the academies, it was the Ivy Leagues, it was Duke. Duke was the only team that offered me that was actually in a real conference. No offense. Right. And so really that made the decision pretty easy. Like, okay, it's ACC. Everybody's telling me this is a great school. I really didn't know anything about it. I just seen them play Florida State before, you know? So I came on my official visit with my parents, right?
Yeah.
And this is actually what locked it up for me. I was standing out in front of the chapel, the Duke Chapel. And, you know, these tours that you go on with your parents when you come for a visit are just like, it was, I don't know, it was like 92 degrees or something, dry, and the sun was out and beating on me. And I just, and we're standing in front of the chapel, and I looked up, you know, one of those exacerbated, like I was just, and I looked up like this, and about the time I got the back of my head parallel to the ground, I felt splat. And I went, and what? I could feel the bird shit run down my face.
No way. Are you serious?
Hold on. So my mother, my mom's from Iran, right? She's Persian. Either they have different sort of like superstitions, right? Or I just fell for it, one or the other. But she said, oh my God, Omid. You know what this means? She calls me Omid. That's my middle name. Omid, do you know what this means? I said, yeah, bird shit on my head. And she goes, no, that's good luck. You have to come here. And I go,
Wow.
Really? She goes, oh, man, I'm not kidding. You must come here. And I was like, all right, well, then can we go? Can we go now? And she's like, are you going to come? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to come. And she goes, yeah, okay, Ronnie, let's go. She tells my dad, let's go. That's how I ended up at Duke.
Oh, man, I thought that was going to go a different direction.
Where'd you think it was going?
I mean, I would think getting shit on probably would be like, all right, maybe this isn't a good idea. And
that was exactly my first thought.
And you had to convince them that it was, but it seems like it was the opposite. Damn.
I think my mom has she's got a way of using her foreignness to confuse me.
Yeah.
If any of our audience is Persian, can you help confirm or deny that this is a true superstition in Iran or
hit the comments, let us know. Wow.
Because that doesn't seem right.
I thought you were going to say you like looked up at the chapel and like had this divine moment of clarity. And it did
you never know. They say God works in mysterious ways.
Mysterious ways, indeed. Wow.
Anybody can be a messenger, I suppose.
Well, I love that, man. You actually reminded me of a few things. If I could jump into mine, if you.
Yeah, I was about to say, what about you? How'd you get here?
No shit hit my face in my recruitment into Duke, but I will say you brought up some interesting things in your story. So my mom also foreign, half Samoan, half Black, and my mom very early on, like always academics over athletics, right? And one story that always sticks out to me. I've been playing football. I'm here in Texas, Houston, in the SWAT, and football is kind of what we're living and breathing down here. And, different from yours, kind of, where I grew up and the folks that I was around, that was kind of one of the primary ways you could get out, if you will, through, football or music, things like that. And so, I was going after it. I was playing Little League and it was relatively, good compared to everybody else. And, it was on the all-star teams, things like that. But I'll never forget third grade, I came home with, I think a C, right? And my mom had a grading scale of her own, A, B, or an F, right? If you have anything less than a B, you might as well have an F.
Win or lose, yeah.
Exactly. It's going to be the same outcome. So came home the day of the championship game, and she stuck to her gun. She said, you're not playing, you're not going. I begged and pleaded. She bent a little bit, said, okay, I'll take you to the game. Thought that was a great idea. So here we are in the parking lot of the game. I'm watching from afar. We never told anybody. This was before cell phones, I think. And so they didn't know where I was. Championship game. I'm watching from afar in the parking lot with a pizza that we ordered. And I'm just bawling my eyes out watching us lose.
Hold on, how old are you?
Game. I was in third grade. I was about 9 years old.
Wow.
And I'm just bawling my eyes out watching our team lose. I was running back and middle linebacker, so it was a pretty significant role on the team. And I remember that day, that was the time I told myself, that's the last time I will ever let academics or grades stop me from doing what I love, which at that very time was playing ball. And so going into, middle school, high school, I was always very academically, on point. And so for me, it was kind of this duality, right? Of like, all right, I'm doing my thing on the field, but I'm also just as focused off the field. And it's funny how the story ended up, right? Where I ended up at Duke. But prior to that, I was pretty good on at the game, right? And our team was brand new. The school was brand new, right? So unproven, but we had a lot of talent. In fact, when I signed my senior year, we had like—
What school was that?
A. Taylor in Houston, Texas. And on my team, right, we had Mike and Martellus Bennett, the Bennett brothers, played in the NFL. You might remember Martellus.
Yeah, Martellus came there the year after I left to Dallas.
Yeah, exactly. So he played tight end, and his brother Mike played DN, and I was middle linebacker. We put several guys in D1, and a few of us ended up in the league. And so we had the talent, right? But at the time, I was super undersized. I was like 5'9", maybe 5'10". And I made it clear that I wanted to stay in the Big 12. I was a big time UT, OU, the Red River Shootout. Like this is the type of stuff I'm watching. I'm watching Ricky Williams get active, right? And so, but the difference was they weren't as actively involved and interested in me. I was getting tons of letters. I remember it was like a big thing of pride when you get to the field house, you got letters and your coaches are handing them out, but never offer letters. It was always like, hey, great game, we're interested, yada, yada, yada. Make a long story short, I actually only had a handful of offers, right? And the primary one was from Louisiana Tech. I got to shout them out because they made it very clear I was their number one guy. But Duke, on the other hand, was kind of, I'm not going to say stringing me along, but keeping their options open, right? And they knew that statistically I was all over the place. You know, I was a kind of touchdown club, all city, all state, all those things, but relatively short. So that said, I'm like, really, you know, Duke was on my radar, but I didn't know much about it. I just knew that it was like an academic powerhouse. I didn't know that much. And so through the process, I was talking to them, and it literally, a lot of people don't know this, it came down literally to the last day. Signing day was February 2nd. I received my offer from Duke on February 1st.
Does that make you nervous?
It did. In fact, I had already committed. I verbally committed to Louisiana Tech. And I realized, you know, I guess you could get to the league from any school, but by that time I had really loved the idea of going to Duke, playing in the ACC. You know, I was already academically strong. I was a 4.0 in high school, president of the engineering club. And so I just felt like that,
engineering club,
you know, trying to do my thing. I was also like, you know, doing hood rat things with my hood rat friends. So it was really like this triple life I was living, but that's for another locker room talk. But they finally came through and they told me, they said, look, you know, it's down to you and this other guy in Georgia, and he's deciding between Duke and Georgia Tech.
You remember his name?
I don't, but I do know that I intercepted a pass to him in the game when we played Georgia Tech a couple of years later.
Oh, really?
So he chose Georgia Tech. They called me. Coach said, you want to be a Blue Devil? And I said, hell yeah. And they overnighted my paperwork. And I went into signing day with that Big D energy, real proud with the Duke hats. They sent me some Duke hats. And so we got some great pictures. But I mean, it was literally the 11th hour when the Duke offer came through. And to be literally the last person kind of offered and signed, and then fast forward, you know, having the type of freshman year I had, you know, it was kind of a fairy tale, if you will. But got that Big D energy at the right time, and here we are, man. So
we're both former Cinderellas.
Yeah, man. So look, I know we got some amazing things ahead. I think it was a great first segment of locker room talk. You know, like I said, keeping it safe, keeping it clean. We'll have some more interesting stuff coming up. But
you won't be so lucky next time.
I didn't know that about your recruiting visit. Mine wasn't as eventful. I'll be honest, I had more fun at Oklahoma State, the #3 party school in the country at the time.
Yeah. You know how many other visits I went on?
How many?
0.
Oh, really?
I just wanted it to be over with. You know what I mean? And once my mom was like, hey, bird shit on your head, you should go here. I was like, cool, let's wrap this up.
Well, here's some locker room talk for you before we end. I was so much looking forward to these visits. You know, the movie that had just come out right before we started our recruiting trips, He Got Game, Jesus Shuttlesworth. And all I remember is a particular scene when he walked into that dorm room, and I said, oh, that's what happens on these visits.
That's the only part of the movie I ever saw.
Exactly.
Over and over and over.
That's the same. So I went in, you know, with that kind of energy, and I guess I'll leave the details for another day. But it was a fun time. But right at that time, they also had the recruiting sanctions play in, because everybody started getting in trouble, flying players out on jets and all kind of stuff. So Duke followed all the rules for anybody listening.
Trust me, they followed all the rules.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I think we need to get into these hot topics. The third quarter is upon us. Great story,
Let's do
bro.
that.
They say. Here you go.